All right. We will call back to order, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Cheyenne Lakota Miller, a fourth grade student from David Lubin Elementary School. Oh, there she is.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You stay right there because your school board member, Mr. Cuneo, has something to say.
Yes, I was able to meet Cheyenne and her family earlier. Cheyenne Lakota Miller is the hero we celebrate today. She is a fourth grade student from David Lubin Elementary who has been highlighted by her teachers and principal as a brilliant student with strong academic performance. When asked about her school and principal, she says that she loves David Lubin Elementary because they make learning fun, and Mr. Dixon, her principal, has an awesome sense of humor and is the tallest principal she's ever had. Cheyenne has a deep interest in science and is trying to like math because it challenges her and she knows she'll need it in the future. Besides her outstanding academics, Cheyenne is also a member of the Milton Miwok tribe and a student of the American Indian Education Program. The American Indian Education Program provides SCUSD students like Cheyenne with academic assistance, helps to build community, offers many opportunities to learn more about indigenous culture, and helps to develop a strong sense of tradition and identity. The lead coordinator of the program, Ms. Christina Prairie Chicken, is someone that Cheyenne looks up to and sees as a great mentor. Cheyenne's sense of community and native pride has been developed by her elders, teachers, and family, and she hopes to give back what she can in the future. Cheyenne also says she will definitely go to college, will graduate from college, and return to Sacramento and work for the Miwok tribe. This dedication to her ethnic heritage is something she holds very close. Cheyenne put her cultural pride at the forefront during a recent field trip to Sutter's Fort with her fourth grade class. When all students were asked to dress in frontier and pioneer costumes, as is the tradition during Sutter Fort visits, Cheyenne respectfully declined and chose instead to wear a traditional leather dress and handmade beads to show respect for her family's deep lineage and history. The board recognizes all individuals who add to the cultural diversity of our school district. We praise Cheyenne for her pride, her insistence on celebrating the culture of generations of people that came before her dedication to academics and her education, and most of all, we admire her courage and the heart it takes to be different. We asked Cheyenne to close her biography with a simple statement, and with confidence she said, "Being Native American is awesome." Sacramento City Unified School District is proud to recognize Cheyenne Lakota Miller as this week's stellar student. Cheyenne, did you want to say anything?
Being Native American rocks.
Cheyenne, yeah, when you go to high school, if you go to West Campus, the principal's even taller.
I get to take a picture.
Gabe?
Mr. Ross is going to take a picture. We got another one. Sure. All right. Congratulations. Maybe I'll see you at David Lubin when I stop by. All right. Bye.
Thank you very much. This meeting of the Sacramento City School Board is being videotaped in its entirety and will be cablecast without interruption on Metro Cable 14, the Government Affairs channel on the Comcast and Sure West cable systems. Today's meeting will air Sunday, May 4th at 9 o'clock a.m. and Monday, May 5th at noon, and webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. Members of the audience wishing to address the board should fill out a speaker identification form located in the back of the room and give it to the Chief Communications Officer, Mr. Ross, prior to the conclusion of the item's presentation. Mr. Ross is to my right. Please speak into the microphone when addressing the board and state your name for the record. Responses to questions by the public will be posted on the district website prior to the next board meeting. Please limit comments during public comment to items that are not listed on the agenda. If you are found to be commenting on an item that is on the agenda, you will be politely asked to defer until your item comes up on the agenda. This time, please turn off all cell phones or place them on silent or vibrate. 5.0, announcement of actions taken in closed session.
Yes, Mr. President, I have two announcements, and then Dr. Deguchi has announcements to make as well. The board, by a unanimous vote, approved Resolution 2014-E, Resolution Rate Non-Reemployment of Certificated Employees 2014-2015 school year. The next resolution to announce out of closed session is Resolution number 2014-F. By a 6-to-1 vote with board member Diana Rodriguez dissenting, adopt a resolution modifying hearing officer's recommended decision, proposed findings and conclusions, and adopting new findings and conclusions. Those are all of my announcements, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Behrens. Dr. Noguchi.
Thank you, President Kennedy. Again this evening, we have the opportunity to welcome some new members to our administrative team. And I find it very interesting that they're all sitting in the very back of the room. However, their guests are sitting in the front. So there's a real concern there. So with that, all four administrators were voted 7-0 for their appointments. Martin Luther King, K-8, we have Miss Denise Lee. She comes to us with 7 years of teaching experience and 2 years as an assistant principal, and we welcome her into that position. Welcome. Next, we have Mr. Reginald Brown for John Steele, K-8. He comes to us with 10 years of teaching experience and a whopping 12 years of administrative experience, and we welcome his family as well. Pacific Elementary, Dr. Shana Henry, 3 years teaching experience and 9 years as administrator. We welcome her to Pacific, and we know that she's going to do a dynamite job out there for us. And the next is Eric Chapman. He is not here this evening, but knows that he was going to close session, and he will be the next principal for Leah Tata Floyd. He has 6 years teaching experience and 5 years as a principal, so we welcome him as well. Last, although not any items taken, you will see on your agenda that we've named 3 interim principals that will serve in the capacity this year, and then we will open up the process in the springtime. We have Rosemont, Liz Vigil, California Middle School, Andrea Egan, and Sacramento New Tech High School, Lise Martinez. So welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Noguchi. 6.0, agenda adoption. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Vice President Wu, second by Vice President Pritchett. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Thank you. 7.0, public comment. Mr. Ross, do we have public comment?
None, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. 8.0, the consent agenda. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Vice President Wu, second by Vice President Pritchett. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? 9.0, communications. Employee organization reports, CSA, SCTA, welcome President Milewski.
Thank you. Good evening, President Kennedy, Interim Superintendent Noguchi, and members of the board. I'm Nikki Milewski, President of the Sacramento City Teachers Association. As you may know, SCTA is an affiliate of the National Education Association and the California Teachers Association. As a state affiliate here in Sacramento, I'm especially proud of the work that the California Teachers Association has done to develop a long-term strategic plan that is new. This plan was based on months of committee work and surveys of our members throughout California. This plan will help us guide our organization and direct our work going forward. Some of the main points of emphasis on the plan are advocacy and education reform, to change the discourse to being proactive and student-centered on education policy issues, transforming our profession by supporting the highest standards for education and professional capital within our organization, leadership and leadership development, to support the recruitment, retention, and development of effective, responsible, and accountable leaders. Social justice, equity, and diversity inside our profession and within our communities, which CTA has been devoted to since our inception 150 years ago. And lastly, one of our most important points of interest is community engagement and coalition building, to build effective, authentic partnerships with parents, other unions, and community organizations to build better communities. It is on this point that our Day of the Teacher theme is built this year. California teachers, inspiring students, strengthening our communities. I brought each of you a copy of our Day of the Teacher poster for 2014. This was created by a team of artists, Megan Burkheister and Mark Cadwell. Copies of the posters are going out to our reps tomorrow to be displayed around our schools. I personally really like our artwork this year, as it supports a focus on CTA's strategic plan. My members care about kids and the families they're working so hard to support, but they cannot do it alone. Oh, I provided each of you a copy for yourselves. Sure. Our public education system is built on a shared vision among educators and the public, and it is up to all of us to help protect and nurture that idea. I believe in quality public education for all of our children, and thank you for joining me in celebrating the California Day of the Teacher. Thank you.
Thank you. There's no state capital on the poster, but you got the Golden Gate Bridge and you got Hollywood. Now, come on.
Always a critic.
SEIU? Teamsters? UPE? 9.2 District Parent Advisory Committees, Community Advisory Committee, District Advisory Council, School Site Councils, District English Learner Advisory Committee, Gifted and Talented Education Advisory Committee, Indian Education Parent Committee, we already had Cheyenne, Sacramento Council of Parent Teacher Associations, 9.3 Interim Superintendent's Report, Dr. Noguchi.
Thank you. Good evening. This past Saturday, I had the opportunity to attend the Comcast Cares event at Ethel Phillips Elementary School. More than 300 volunteers arrived at the school and worked all day on beautification projects. There were Comcast employees, parents, grandparents, teachers, staff, students, board members, and folks from the La Familia Counseling Center. Congressional Representatives Doris Matsui was there with Senate President Steinberg and Assemblymember Dickinson, along with City Councilman Jay Chenier. All of these people, those in powerful positions, and those that are just small, first graders, kindergartners, preschoolers, were all there working together. Some of the many projects that were finished at Ethel Phillips included the painting of 3 fabulous murals on the school walls. One of the murals was the school mascot, a dragon covered with high-frequency words in both English and in Spanish. Folks were pulling weeds, planting hundreds of plants, both in small planters and large planters. They now have a summer garden that the school can work with. A giant map of the United States was painted on the blacktop, and on Monday when I got there, I saw kindergartners jumping from state to state. They said they were walking the states. Benches were built and assembled around trees in the courtyards. Students now have a place to sit when they go outside. At the end of the day, the Comcast Vice President, David Cohen, handed Principal Danny Hernandez a check for $25,000. After it was all over, Principal Hernandez recounted the day and said something that I thought was meaningful and applicable to all in the district. He said, "This wasn't done for us, it was done with us, side by side." To me, this statement speaks how well-functioning districts work. They work together. As we move forward, I trust that all of us will begin to see Sac City Schools as a true unified school district, working together in support of the teaching and learning for all of our students. In a minute, the board will honor part of our team who continue to work in support of our students. I'm so pleased to take a few minutes to recognize our teachers, nurses, and classified employees. Truth is, we don't do enough to honor folks that contribute to the success of our district. That includes the students themselves and the parents. Let's change this practice and begin to publicly recognize those individuals who support the mission. We've had an incredible busy start to this year, actually incredible busy start to the spring. Between implementing our new student information system and adjusting to the new online state testing, it's been crazy in our schools. Yet it's encouraging to me that while we've had a few glitches, there hasn't been any major problems. This is a large part to the teamwork in our schools and at the district office. I also attribute this to our collective community in trusting each other as we move forward. Trusting each other enough to know that the small changes need to happen and we need to work together. People trust that the changes in our district will help the district grow stronger, so we're dealing with the hiccups along the way. I truly appreciate this attitude. This attitude will go a long way in making us stronger. I am confident that Sac City can and will work together for substantive and sustainable change if we continue both the teamwork and the trust. Good evening.
Thank you. 9.4, President's Report. No report. 9.5, Student Member Kovalchuk.
Thank you, Board President Kennedy. Today I'd like to report on the meetings that I was able to attend. I was able to, for the past month, increase awareness throughout the district about the position of student board member. So the first collection of adults that I had a chance to meet with was the District English Learners Advisory Committee. And I had a chance to explain what the process was for a student board member to become elected and just the roles and responsibilities that I have. So the parents who are English learner parents were able to more understand about this. I also had a chance to visit the Parent Leadership Academy that was held at Rosemont High School on Monday. And it was a very small group, and we were able to have a wonderful discussion about just what I do, how it was, and what I've personally experienced in this position. And in addition to the parent groups, I was able to visit John F. Kennedy High School's Associated Student Body, Burbank High School's Associated Student Body, Hiram Johnson's Associated Student Body, and also I had the wonderful opportunity to speak at the Kit Carson Middle School Career Fair about my position as student board member and just to give the students advice on what it was like for me as a middle school student going all the way through high school, and now I'm about to graduate. I also would like to mention that today was our deadline for submitting election materials for next year's Student Advisory Council Board, and we have received multiple applications, and our elections will be held in a few weeks. So all the student representatives from each high school will be electing the new student board member and all of the executive board for the Student Advisory Council. On a thought similar to Dr. Noguchi's, I also had an opportunity to attend Earl Warren Elementary School's Explore at Night, and me and my fellow students from West Campus High School's National Honor Society volunteered to show the students how certain scientific things were. There were real pig organs laid out and awesome science stuff. So it was a wonderful hands-on activity. I'm sorry for the maybe lighter-hearted people here.
Kind of hungry now.
It was awesome because so many people from the community were able to come out. we had students who were as young as 5 years old, kindergartners, coming around with their parents, trying to explain to them what it was that they were seeing, this huge thing. And it was just amazing to see this entire community come together and just to have fun learning together. I'm sure the parents, everyone in the room learned something that night. And in addition to that, I would also like to invite any listeners and any of you in this room to our West Campus High School's musical, spring musical, called Into the Woods. It's an adaptation of beloved stories from childhood, but it's an interesting mix of it. So there is actually one performance going on tonight and tomorrow as well. And in addition to that, there will be performances next Thursday and Friday, May 8th and 9th. So if anyone is interested, feel free to email me or come to West Campus High School. Tickets will be sold at the door. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member. I really appreciate you getting out into the district as much as you do. Thank you very much. 9.6, information sharing by board members. Vice President Wu.
Thank you, President Kennedy. I also want to thank Comcast NBC for Comcast Cares. I was at the school. There were so many volunteers were running around looking for projects. So that's pretty amazing. I had a nice discussion with Principal Hernandez. Ethel Phillips Elementary was not the first school selected. Somebody else turned him down. And so he was so amazed. And when he accepted, and little did he know that the PTA would be getting a $25,000 check. And the 7 projects that we were engaged in were just amazing. So I also want to remind everybody who is listening that Comcast is continuing their internet project, so you can still, if you qualify, you can get internet access for $9.95 and a $150 coupon toward a laptop for so many of our children who are on free and reduced lunch. They're the ones that qualify. So this is how they can move into the 21st century. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Wu. Vice President Pritchett.
Thank you, President Kennedy. If you were here last week at our board meeting, you probably saw that my seat was empty. And I had the wonderful opportunity to travel to Washington, D.C. for our National Teacher Home Visit Project board. We were able to go into a Washington, D.C. school and was able to listen to a panel of teachers, students, parents, and a principal that has taken this opportunity of the Parent-Teacher Home Visit Project to a whole new level. I am very proud to sit on that board, and I really look forward to our future work at Sac City as well with our national board.
Thank you very much. Board Member Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. This week was another week spending a lot of time at McClatchy High School. We finished my 4th of a series of superintendent meetings outreaching to the community. So really had a good opportunity to meet with parents and staff to discuss what we're all looking for in our next superintendent. That's been very informative. Next Tuesday, I'm going to be doing an introduction meeting for the new principal, the interim principal, Andrea Egan at Cal Middle School. So I'd like to invite folks to come to that if you'd like to have a chance to meet her. We're inviting folks who are 6th grade parents at the feeder schools, as well as the class that'll still be continuing on at Cal Middle, the 7th graders going into 8th grade. This afternoon, I get to spend some time at McClatchy again. We did grading of senior projects for those students who are looking to graduate, have to do presentations as their final project. So that was very interesting. There were some really excellent projects, including one student who built his own banjo and taught himself how to play. So there were some really, really exciting folks that had done some really great work with their teachers. And I told them if they graduated, I actually get to shake their hand at a graduation ceremony. So I hope that I get to see all of them there. And then we had a really great science fair at Cabrillo Elementary School a couple weeks ago. We had a lot of students from Health Professions High School that attended that also and helped do the presentations. They did a real excellent job. And the Cabrillo PTA and the principal there really have done a fantastic job keeping that science fair going and getting students interested in science at an early age. And lastly, a couple days ago, we finished the last school where we delivered free glasses to students. There's a program called Vision to Learn that our district's been working with for many, many months. And it finally culminated. Over 200 students in our district received free eyeglasses. It's a really remarkable contribution. I know that we're going to want to continue that next year. They'd like to expand it beyond the 8 schools, elementary schools that we did. It's really wonderful. And to be able to give a student glasses who's never had them before and watch them put them on and be able to see things they'd never been able to see before really was extraordinary. And then I wore my glasses too. So you just also have to help encourage them. It's actually kind of cool to have glasses. So because they didn't want to wear them very much.
Yeah.
So many of us on this dais agree. So that was really fun. So we'll have to make sure we spread the news more on that next time. So all of us can participate. I think it was a really wonderful time to see that. So it's been a good couple weeks.
Good. Thank you very much. All right, seeing no more. Move to 10.0, Board Workshop, Strategic Plan, and Other Initiatives. 10.1, Resolution Number 2792, Recognition of California Day of the Teacher. Vice President Pritchett.
Thank you. It is my pleasure to give a resolution in recognition of the California Day of the Teacher. Whereas on May 14, 2014 has been designated through the state of California as the Day of the Teacher, and whereas an educated public serves as the foundation of our democracy, and whereas teachers as well as counselors, librarians, social workers, and other certificated personnel touch many people with their lasting effect. Whereas excellence in our state and district begins with the California certificated staff. Whereas certificate staff overcomes obstacles, challenges daily to make a difference in their lives of students and families now. Therefore, to be it resolved, the Sacramento City Unified School District Board of Education commends our teachers and encourages our parents and the community to recognize their efforts of the certificated staff as we celebrate May 14, 2014 as the California Day of the Teacher.
Kind of did. Thank you.
Calling me out now?
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
10.2, Resolution 2793, Recognition of National School Nurse Day, and I will be reading this resolution, and afterwards I hope that Member Hanson, as a champion of nurses, will also join me down with the presentation. Whereas May 7th, 2014 has been designated as National School Nurse Day, and whereas credentialed school nurses with specialized medical backgrounds and academic preparation provide health education for students, parents, and staff, and promote and protect the health and well-being of all children from infants to students with special needs, and whereas school nurses assume increased responsibility for the health care of students, and whereas school nurses play an essential role in ensuring children are ready to learn and are thriving, and whereas school nurses may provide the only health care available to disadvantaged children, and whereas one California school nurse serves well over 2,000 students per year, and whereas Sacramento students, families, and staff benefit greatly from the skill and training of its nursing corps. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Sacramento Unified School District Board of Education commends our nurses and encourages all students and staff to honor and recognize the valuable contributions of its school nurses as we celebrate May 7th, 2014 as National School Nurse Day. Thank you.
Thank you. Barbara, you should be up there. Barbara's a huge supporter. Me. Okay.
Thanks again.
I have to admit, I wish every meeting was like this. 10.3, resolution number 2794, recognition of classified school employees week. Vice President Wu.
Thank you, President Kennedy. And I will read the resolution. Whereas the week of May 18th to May 24th, 2014 is celebrated as Classified School Employees Week in the state of California. And whereas California and Sacramento City Unified School District employees work to ensure the success of students across the state. And whereas the invaluable contributions of classified employees support learning by ensuring students arrive safely at school, are served nutritious meals, provided assistance in classrooms, and learn in clean and safe environments. And whereas classified employees also contribute to the welcoming and efficient operation of schools and districts, and whereas classified employees serve an integral part in serving California students and families, now therefore it be resolved that the Sacramento City Unified School District Board of Education recognizes its classified employees and encourages parents and the community to honor their efforts and many contributions as we celebrate the week of May 18th to May 24th, 2014 as Classified School Employees Week.
Oh. Thank you, everybody who was here for the presentations. We honor and respect your work, and we thank you so much. .4, Special Education Services, Dr. Olivine Roberts.
Good evening, Board President Kennedy, Interim Superintendent Dr. Noguchi, and members of the board. I am pleased to be joined by Becky Bryant, Director of Special Education Services. Tonight, we will serve as your facilitators of this workshop in special education services. As such, this is going to be an interactive session. We have embedded within the presentation an opportunity for your engagement. Tonight's presentation will provide you with an overview of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, the eligibility process and the necessary assessments, the development of an individualized education program, the service delivery models that are being implemented in the district, as well as our engagement that we have begun and will continue with our parents. The district is committed to the broad values of inclusion, equity, and opportunity for students with disabilities. Our desired results include greater access to the general curriculum, provision of services in the least restrictive environment, and increased academic achievement. These goals and services are in alignment with the Individuals and Disabilities Act, which is a very comprehensive set of federal mandates and protections that guide how states, school districts, and public agencies provide special education services for students who have been identified as being eligible. Although federal law is the basis for our mandate, California, as do other states, also enact additional protections for students who have been found eligible. Last month, you heard a presentation on 504 and its set of mandates. We wanted to bring back to your attention their differences and similarities. To note, to be eligible for special education, a student must have a disability and must need special education services and related services. Although IDEA provides the highest level of services for students and the most protection, if a student has a disability but does not, I repeat, does not need special education services, the student is not eligible for special education under IDEA, but may be eligible for services through the 504 Rehabilitation Act. So, in this district, our eligibility and assessment process is as such. Students may be referred for services only after all pre-referral interventions in general education have been exhausted. Eligibility decisions are based on evaluations of the student. The process is comprehensive, very thorough, and includes the following: gathering of parent input, reviewing the student's history, including current classroom functioning, determining the student's cognitive functioning ability, and if any processing disorders are evident. In addition, it includes administering academic assessments as well as health and developmental assessments. Other assessments, such as speech and language, adaptive physical education, and occupational therapy, may be administered and analyzed if warranted. As I draw your attention to this data slide, please note that the 2013-14 data represent numbers as of April 28th and not the full school year. The graph illustrates the special education enrollment that it continues to increase from year to year. Initial referral rates, which you see identified in blue, meaning students being identified for special education service, have also increased over the 3-year period. In addition to that, the interim places in red, which are placements of students who transfer into the district with an active IEP, that data, as you can see from year to year, is also increasing. A comparison view of our two neighboring districts, San Juan and Elk Grove, reveals the following trends. You've also been given a handout of this data that gives you a side-by-side view of all 3 school districts. Again, I remind you that the 2013-14 data represent numbers as of April for all 3 districts as of April 2014 and not the full year. The table depicts that San Juan, similar in size to Sac City, has an increasing enrollment of students receiving special education services. Elk Grove, which has a much larger student population, is also experiencing an increase in the number of students receiving special education services. In all districts, we see that the initial referrals as well as the interim placements are also increasing from year to year. At this time, you're going to hear from Becky Bryant, who will share with you the budget, orient you to the IEP process, our service delivery models, and lastly, we'll discuss how we are engaging parents. And before she comes, I'd like to take this opportunity to also welcome our parent who you will hear from, Benita Ayala. At this time, Becky.
Board President Kennedy, board members, and Interim Superintendent Noguchi. Let's see, I've got to get to the right slide here. Okay. This slide depicts our current special education budget for the year. As you can see, the top line is AB 602 funds, which are state funds that are based on the district's ADA. Then following down the line, we have our IDEA funds, which are federal funds, transportation funds that come from the state to provide transportation services for our students who are receiving special education services as a related service, or transportation as a related service. And that line item actually goes directly to our transportation department to provide the transportation for those students. Then the next line, of course, is the general fund contribution, the overall contribution to the program. You will note that this is higher than you've noted in the past, and one of the reasons for that is in the new LCFF funding, there used to be something called the revenue transfer limit, which was the ADA that our students who are educated in special day classes generate for the district. That amount, that $10.5 million, is built into that general fund contribution now as part of the LCFF. The next line then is, because transportation is a costly service for us, the general fund has to again make another contribution to the program to provide transportation to our students. And finally, we get a variety of other grants and entitlements, such as our educationally related mental health dollars, or workability funds, and Department of Rehabilitation dollars, et cetera. So that brings our budget for this year to a total of approximately $83,200,000. Returning to the IEP, after the assessments are complete and within 60 days of the parent's consent for the testing, the IEP meeting is held. The IEP is developed by the IEP team, which consists of the parent, of course, the principal or his or her designee, a program specialist, general education teacher, special education teacher, school psychologist, nurse, and any other professionals that may have completed assessments. The IEP document itself paints a picture of the student, and it illustrates the student's strengths, the concerns from the parent's perspective and other team members, and then current functioning levels in academic areas, social, emotional, behavioral areas, gross and fine motor, vocational skills, adaptive skills, and any relevant health information. Throughout the gathering of all this information, the parent is a vital partner in this process, gathering information from them and the participation during the IEP meeting. If the student is found eligible through the assessment, then specific goals and objectives are developed to address the student's areas of need. Following that, then accommodations and/or modifications are documented to ensure that the students have support to access the curriculum in the classroom and also during the time that they take the statewide assessments or curricular assessments throughout the year. Then an offer of services is documented for the student on the IEP, and as our offer of a free and appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment. And finally, as I said before, our parents are our partners throughout this process, and an IEP is only implemented if a parent provides written consent to the contents of the IEP. Now we're going to engage in an activity. You have as a handout, I believe, a copy of an IEP, and I'd like to make you familiar with it so that it can put a visual to some of the information I've just shared with you. So you've been given a copy of the sample IEP with all of the identifying information redacted for confidentiality, so you'll see there are many blanks in the document that you have. So I'd just like to do a preview of the entire document, and then we'll go back and touch on some specifics. So the first page is the demographic information of the student, and student ID kinds of numbers and things would go on this first page. Pages 2 and 3 encompass the present levels of performance, what the student is currently doing, reports from the team about the student's strengths, and concerns from the parent. Page 4 is our special factors page, and this is actually a requirement of the IDEA that we look at whether a student needs assistive technology, whether or not they have a low incidence disability such as a visual impairment or a hearing impairment or a deaf, and needs specialized materials. In addition, we have certain questions we need to answer about whether or not the student is an English learner and how we're going to accommodate that if they are, as well as a student's behavioral needs and whether or not they need additional services or considerations. Pages 5, 6, and 7 of this document are actually the student services that have been recommended for this particular sample student. Page 8 is our statewide assessment page, and that's where a specific documentation about the accommodations and or modifications we would need to, that the student would be eligible for during that testing period. On page 10 are the IEP team notes. The notes are a narrative of what has occurred during the IEP, as well as recommendations and agreements that have been made by the team through the process of the assessment and the meeting. Page 11 is the educational setting page, and that actually documents how much of the student's time the student will spend outside of the general education classroom, and how often a parent will be informed about the student's progress. Page 12 and 13 are goals and objectives. This particular student has a couple of areas of need identified, and these have been recommended for that student. Pages 14 through 22 is a behavioral support plan that has been developed by one of our partners, one of the non-public agencies that we contract for this particular student, to work on some of the behaviors that have been impeding learning and progress in general education. And finally, the last page, page 23, this document is the consent page. And that is where all of the folks that attended the IEP meeting sign in attendance, and the parent provides written consent to all or parts of the IEP. Not all IEPs are 23 pages long. Some are more, some are longer, some are less intensive, but they all are at least about 15 pages long in length. So now you are going to engage in an activity. We'd like you to take your copy of the IEP and turn to page 2 and 3 of the document. Note at the top of the page where it says student strengths, preference, interests. And then directly below that section is where parent concerns are noted. Continuing down that same page, you will see all of those areas of present levels of performance that I just mentioned. And each of these help create that picture of the student. So I'd like you to take a moment with a shoulder partner and to review the 2 pages of the IEP. And while you're reading, please note one concern, one strength that you see, and any other piece of data or information about the student. And I'll give you a few minutes to peruse that.
Mine would say my listening skills aren't very good. What pages exactly are we looking at? 2 and 3? Thank you.
2 and 3.
We're looking for strengths and what else?
A concern and any other piece of data or information that stands out for you about the student.
Thank you.
It's also on the slide. So as you wrap up your final thoughts about what you've noted as you've perused those 2 pages, I'd like to ask, what did you notice about the student in terms of a strength, a concern, or additional piece of information?
And to be clear, board, during this portion of the participatory presentation, just jump right in. Don't wait for me to acknowledge.
I think it's amazing that it says 91 words per minute reading when the grade level average is 30 to 45. That's awesome.
What else?
I just from reading the first page, very high acumen in terms of mathematics, English. I mean, his brain is like just excelling. It's just the communication and the social skills that are the problem that could lead some students to be misunderstood, and therefore their academics truncated because they're excelling very well in academics. They just don't have the environment to express themselves or to actually excel at that.
I think this is me. I get frustrated with change.
Shut down.
This is me like when I was younger.
And apparently you communicate with others rather than your peers.
Difficult time explaining myself. I need time to decompress. I'm good in math, but I don't like change. I get frustrated. This is all about me.
Anyone else? Okay. So now I'd like you to turn to page 5 of the document. And on pages 5, 6, and 7, you will notice a few things, and I'd like you to sort of go through and review it. But I'd like you to review it because it talks about the students' accommodations and or modifications in the classroom, regular things that we would do for that student to help them have better access to their instruction, as well as the services that have been recommended for that student. And then if you turn to page 6, halfway down the page, you will see there's also a recommendation for this student for extended school year. We must make that determination at each and every IEP for our students to determine whether or not we feel they are going to have academic or social emotional regression if we do not provide them services in the summer. So we are mandated to offer an extended school year program to prevent that. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to look at those services.
Can I ask a question right now? The extended school year, like which schools do we have that offer the extended school years for?
Well, it's a district-wide, SELPA-wide program, and so typically we have probably over 700 to 800 students who have been determined eligible through the IEP process, and we usually operate 2 full elementary schools and a middle and high school program on the same site.
In the summers?
In the summer. We're required to operate a 20-day program.
And they all receive transportation?
Yes. So moving on, relative to what you read on pages 2 and 3, and then what you've looked at on pages 5, 6, and 7, have appropriate accommodations and services been recommended for this student in order to provide the student educational benefit, which is one of the foundations of the law that we work from. And maybe just take a moment if you'd like to share what you're noticing about what some of those accommodations in the classroom are, as well as a couple of the services that the student is receiving.
Is this someone that has autism?
Yeah, this child has autism.
Okay, that's what.
So would anybody like to share? What are you seeing in terms of accommodations and modifications and whether or not they appear to be related to the documented areas of concerns previously?
One of the accommodations that I see on page 6, under behavior intervention services, providers and non-public agency.
Yes.
Could you tell me a little bit more about what that would mean? What does it look like when it's a NPA?
So this is one of the student services, and we provide related services in a variety of ways for the students. We have many students in our district that need behavioral support services currently, and sometimes we do not have the capacity as a staff to handle all of the requests at once, and so we may engage our non-public agency partners to provide either short or long-term service to the student in terms of perhaps aid support or a behavior consultant that helps take data and look at data for the student and make recommend adjustments to the IEP team throughout the year.
Is that the same as like an SES, the non-public agency, or is that different? Are those totally different things?
They're different. Okay. They're different. They have to be certified through California Department of Education as either a non-public school or a non-public agency and meet certain requirements.
So one of them, if I'm thinking correctly, would it be like a regional center of sorts, or just something different than
that? The
that?
regional center is a different type of service. These would be direct service providers that we contract with when we have a need beyond our capacity to serve currently.
For example, like Easter Seals for
Correct.
speech.
Correct. Yeah, and so they become our subcontractors, and they provide services to the student through the IEP.
Okay. Thank you.
So, accommodations, would anyone like to pick one out to share?
I'll say something.
Thank you.
I like that it talked about predetermined seating arrangements, because I know going into classrooms, children that don't have IEPs sometimes may need an IEP to predetermine that seating arrangement. So I appreciated that was in there.
Frequent breaks as well.
Yeah.
One of the things you will notice in many IEPs for students that demonstrate these kinds of needs is that by putting many more predictable things into their schedule every day and supporting them throughout the day with pre-warnings about what's going to happen next and how much longer an activity is going to last, really helps to reduce any kind of anxiety or behavioral outbursts that might occur, because they have a clear understanding of what's expected and what's coming next.
Are the minutes in this plan cumulative? So looking at all the various aspects of it, you look at the total number of minutes, and we're talking about 6,300 minutes a year. Your child's going to school every 50 weeks out of the year times 5, that's 250 days. That's a lot of time. So does it overlap, or do certain minutes get double counted?
So that's an excellent question. In each of the service areas, you will see a duration and a frequency. The first number is how much time, the duration of the service. The second number is the number, how many times, how many sets of 30-minute sessions the student's going to get. Those are two things are then multiplied for a total, and that becomes a yearly total. So a student could have multiple services during a day, and that's why they add up to so many minutes. Okay, anything else? So as you can see, the IEP is a very, very thorough document, and it's developed by a comprehensive IEP team. It takes a lot of time to do a very well-developed IEP. It's a very thoughtful process, and we take it very seriously. And along the way, throughout this development, we're doing this in partnership with the student's parent. And you need to also note that it's legally binding. So once the parent is signing consent, it's a legally binding document. And we have many things to keep track of to make sure we're providing the services that we've agreed to. Okay, thank you for your participation. I'm going to move on and talk very briefly about service delivery models. You will hear more detail about this next month when I come back to ask you to approve the SELPA's annual service and budget plan. But know that the SCUSD SELPA provides a full continuum of service to meet our students' needs. I want to highlight three very briefly. The second bullet, general education with support. We want our students to stay in general education for as much time as possible, all of our eligible students. And so sometimes we are able to bring support to the classroom to support that student, either in terms of paraprofessional support or push in teacher support, note takers in class, those kinds of things. Our second model I'd like to highlight is, of course, our inclusive practices, where we employ co-teaching strategies, and the general education teacher and special ed support teacher work hand in hand to provide services to all the students in the classroom. And if you remember, we currently have our 6 original sites that we started with 4 years ago, I guess. And in those settings, we were actually able to include all of our students in special day class and the RSP programs. As we have expanded to 8 additional sites due to the budget and the cost, we have been targeting our RSP programs only because we've been able to do that within the budget restraints that we've been operating under for the last several years. Finally, I'd like to highlight the second to the last bullet about non-public schools and agencies, including residential treatment centers, if appropriate. If you recall, in 2011, we did become the placing agency, school districts became the placing agency for students who need residential treatment centers for educational need.
Going back there, so a special day class is a class that is specifically designated for special ed students.
Yes, and they spend usually the majority of their school day there, but even now we have some students who their home is the special day class, but they spend almost all day out of the classroom. And in fact, in this particular student's case, that's exactly we're transitioning. So.
Can I ask what an example of a residential treatment center is?
A residential treatment center would be a facility that is licensed through both the Department of Human Services, if you will, and also California Department of Education to provide a high level of supervision and therapeutic support for students. No, not group homes. Residential treatment facilities are specific treatment facilities that provide counseling and case management and a high level 24/7 supervision.
And your access point into that is the IEP?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that? So
Absolutely.
you said in 2011, school districts in California became residential, what were they called, residential treatment centers? What does that look like for the districts? Specific, what does it look like to us? How do we do that?
In 2011, when the transition, because of the repeal of the AB 3632 took place, we had a transition period where we inherited all of the students in residential treatment who resided in our district that county mental health had previously treated. Prior to that time, county mental health would do the residential treatment. They would recommend that, and they would pay for that, and then we would cover the educational portion. The decision-making body was the IEP team, but county mental health carried much of the weight in terms of the determination of the placement. In 2011, it became the responsibility of the school district with the repeal and suspension of the law. So through the IEP process now, that is one of the continuum of services that we continue to look at when we are considering least restrictive to most restrictive for students.
So in summary, then, we are the coordinators. We act as a coordinator of this student's outcome.
For students who demonstrate such a high degree of emotional need and may not be successful in any of the educational settings that we have available to them locally, then we may, as part of the IEP decision-making process, make that recommendation.
Thank you.
Okay. Parent and community engagement. We've worked really hard in recent years to improve our relations with our families and our parents and to engage them through different avenues. To build the capacity of our parents, we have partnered with our Community Advisory Committee, our CAC, to provide workshops for parents, and they've become very popular. The last 2 years we did monthly offerings. We cut back a little bit this year because the CAC was so busy and so active. But throughout every training, at the end of that, we take feedback from the parents and get additional ideas and needs that they need for additional learning or support. And then we plan trainings around that and come back and present that to them. Last year we did a pretty significant all-day training on the IEP process for parents, and that was very well attended. It was on a weekend. This year, our sessions have focused on, of course, the Common Core, English Language Arts, and math, and what it means for families of students with disabilities. Bullying, knowing that there are specific bullying protocols in the district, making sure parents are aware of that. And then strategies type workshops such as executive function. And that particular workshop is very, very popular with our parents because those are really concrete strategies that can be used in the classroom and at home to help kids be more organized, be able to plan, complete projects. And you know that those skills carry with you. Those are life skills. They carry across all environments. Next year, we've, in partnership with the CAC, we've already determined that we're going to be providing additional sessions on the Common Core and really attempting to weave in those specific strategies and access points for students with disabilities and things that parents can do at home to assist their children. The CAC has been fabulous for our SELPA. They are a growing parent advisory group. There are partners in training. They provide very strong community outreach. You may go to things out in the community on the weekend and you will see our CAC representing Sac City Unified on their own at different events. They also provide very valuable feedback on district initiatives, and they provide support to parents who seek them out for assistance or information. And you're going to have an opportunity to hear from them directly in June when we come with the annual service and budget plan. We really need and value the parent feedback that we get. We've worked really hard on strengthening our case management ability so that when we're assisting families, we're trying to really give that the one family at a time sort of service. It's difficult with so many families that we assist. We have a very large program. However, it pays off. The more time we spend up front, we are able to establish really positive relationships with our families. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to spend all day at our statewide SELPA Legislative Action Day. We had 5 of our CAC parents with us all day long, and I was so proud because they were so eloquent and so passionate about the needs of their children to the people that make the rules and give out the money, and really spoke passionately about making sure that programs for their children are funded well or funded where they were a few years ago, and to continue to provide protections and services for their students. I think in the end, it's really important to bring it really local and really central, and I'd like to have an opportunity to have a parent highlight what her experience has been in the IEP process, how it's evolved for her to have that journey to secure appropriate services for her son. So I'd like to invite Benita.
My name is Benita Ayala. My son's name is Christopher Ayala, and he is 12 years old. And he's been in Sac City since he was 3. He was diagnosed with autism. So my journey started when he was 3 years old with having my IEP. And I would say, from a parent's point of view, the journey is quite extensive because you have a team of, well, let me tell you this. My son, Sac City provides speech therapy for my son, which is twice a week outside of school with American River Speech. He gets services of speech at school because also my son is nonverbal. Okay, so we also have occupational therapy, which is twice a week, which is outside of school. He also has adaptive PE, which is at school. He also has, you might not have heard of this, music therapy, which is outside, well, now it's in school. Okay, along with that, he has a personal aide to help him assist to maneuver with school and with his curriculum through school. So to say that, my journey started, obviously, like I said, when he was 3, and you come into a team of people that you feel that you have to learn to trust. Because as a parent, you have a multitude of, with my point of view, is that you have a multitude of people that you have reports that you're reading about your particular child that can be very emotional and very hard. So in that, you develop, I would say more so of an attitude where you got to come out fighting. Okay, that was my particular aspect of that. But as I journeyed through and come across some program specialists that came to me that I had to learn to trust, and what I mean by that is because you have to have a trusting relationship. I feel that has helped me. And that is, I had to trust the program specialist that during her process that we had issues with different issues that we had to go through, which I really don't want to kind of go in through because it's about trying to explain the process. I developed a positive relationship with her because of the fact that I felt that she had a concern with my journey with my son. So in doing that, it helped me to grow more and learn about how the operation of what my goals and what I should do as a parent. Okay, so that's where I also joined the CAC. So in that process, excuse me, what I would say is that it took an effort from from the school district and myself to come together because it's a team. I look at the IEP as a contract, and it's a contract to me for my school district to say that they're going to provide these particular services for my child. Okay, my part in that is that I will continue to further to step out and what I need to do at home to whether it be to make sure he's provided with whatever that might be as a parent steps out. So through the years, my relationship with Sac City has gotten stronger because of the fact I had to develop a trust. A trust, the fact that they will abide by the, I considered it the, like we talked about the contract, the IEP, and that we will have the best consideration for my child at that time. So my biggest thing that I would express is that it took a trusting relationship between myself and Sac City. And one of the things that I would express with Becky that I find important in the IEPs, I don't know if you've ever really been in one, but so you step into a room, with, in my case, there's probably about 10 people in there because of the different services that my son has. So every single person is going to do a report, okay? So what I've learned to do that makes it easier, and it makes it as a team, because I rely on this team to help my son maneuver through the school system, to maneuver through classes. And you figure we got another 10 years to go with this. So what I've developed that I found to be very helpful and less emotional for me, because if you take something, I don't know if you guys have ever had a doctor's report or whatever that might be that is touching to your heart, it does something to you and you can't function the same. You function out of emotion. So when you're on IEP, as a parent, you need to function in a manner that is more conducive to the fact that you're looking at the goals and the purpose of how you need to maneuver for your child. So what I developed, well, I shouldn't say I developed, but what worked for me is that I worked on getting all my reports from the people that have participated in my team. So that means you have an occupational therapist, you have a speech therapist, you have the teacher, and all the people that I named off. So we're talking about somewhere between 6 to 8 reports. I would go through those reports, highlighted what I wanted. So by that time, I've read it, I've cried, and I've done my emotional thing prior to getting to my meeting, so I can come in and be a very active person and be proactive for my child. So when I would step into the meetings, I would ask the program specialist, is that if he would, who facilitates the IEPs at that time, if it would be okay if we could just ask people for my son's strengths and his weaknesses, which I noticed, you noticed Becky Bryant spoke about that earlier. And what that got for me is that here we know what he has that works really well for him. Yet here it is over here, these weaknesses that we need to get over here. So my last IEP that I had less than a month ago, the program specialist, I think this is a phenomenal idea. I think she got a little excited because she was a teacher at the time. She was working on being a teacher because she had a whiteboard and everything. So what we did is we wrote down his strengths and weaknesses on a board throughout every person, every service that he got. And they said, okay, this is what I think Christopher's strength is. That's his name. And this is what I think what his weaknesses is. And we wrote them on the board. Now, how are we going to put all this together to make this young man that he's able to maneuver and function through the curriculum at that time? And what it was very, for me, it's like I was sitting in a group with family, people who cared and had a concern, compared to when I first started off. To be totally honest with you, I felt I was sitting with people that I felt were my enemies. That's just me personally. I thought they were, but the tension and what you get, it had nothing to do with what they said or whatever. But from a parent's point of view, it was just like, and you felt it was attack because you're reading all these different things, whether they're true, but it's more of attack that you felt that you're feeling. So now from there to the process of where I have now, it's almost like I'm coming in with a group of people that I feel, okay, we're coming together, we're going to talk about Christian, we're going to get it. And these people come, everybody comes, and they're ready. And afterwards, I still have my team meeting to figure out how we're going to maneuver to help Christopher, because one of the biggest things is Christopher is working on having an iPad for his communication, which is going to be a big thing, because now we have to maneuver how that iPad is going to work for him to have access to participate in school, Common Core, per se. So it happened from a journey that started off, let's just say dismal or hard or challenging, whatever we might put it, to the point that now I feel that I'm able to have more confidence and more, it's not overwhelming. It's more just, okay, we're going to come and we're going to figure this out. And from a parent's point of view, it feels better to do it that way, where you don't have so much anxiety in figuring out who you're going to fight or who you're going to battle. So my biggest thing that I developed is that I learned that I have to develop a trusting relationship, and that goes both ways. So that's kind of my story. Mm-hmm.
So that concludes our presentation and interactive workshop. We're happy to entertain any questions you might have.
Okay, first we're going to take public comment.
We have one public comment on this item from Grace Trujillo.
Hello, my name is Grace Trujillo. I'm sorry I was late. I was going to be part of the little mini presentation, but running around and being an advocate downtown and lobbying for kids with disabilities and at the same time come to the board meetings. Sometimes it's a little bit overwhelming. But one of the things that I want to talk about my experience, again, I agree with Benita. I think at first we felt attacked, we felt scared, we felt all these feelings. Having a child with disabilities, you go through 7 cycles during that process, and it's a very difficult process once you find out you have a son with disabilities. And then you try to figure out, what could I do to help him? I think I could go on and give you all my different experiences, but one of the things I tell parents is educate yourself. Once you know your rights and you know what services a child needs and you work together, a collaborative effort, it makes a huge difference. It improves your child's well-being. Just to give you an example, I think my last incidents that I've been stressed out over for the past, I would say 4 months, is the fact that a little boy, another child with disabilities, brought a magazine. One of those Hustler magazines, by the way, and it's, how do you explain that to a child with disabilities? It's been hell and back, just coming back with that. You know, trying to figure out all the different pros and cons. But I have to admit, Jackie and the special ed team have done an exceptional job in helping me through that process, even though it's been very, very difficult for me. I think one of the key things I started thinking, I said, okay, what is the thing as a team we work together and trying to figure out the pros and cons, what services are out there to help them. At the same time, what things could special education help? And I'm a big part of it because I'm the expert for my child. And what could I do to be part of it? I thought to myself, there's 6,000 kids with special needs. There's 10 program specialists. That's an average of 600 cases per each person. And you got 180 days. So I bow my hat to special education because it's a tremendous work and it's a tremendous field in order to be in that field. And I think the key thing is working together. I know some of my other CAC members wanted to come, but as I said before, there's very few parents that take the time and have the effort to lobby downtown, to talk to assembly people, to talk to the state officials regarding all these different levels, and we have done an exceptional job. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Vice President Wu.
So, Ms. Benita, I have a few questions for you. So your son has been in the program how many years now?
Let's see, he's 12 now, and he started when he was 3.
So 9 years. And what you didn't say is whether or not you think the district is doing a good job. You talked a lot about trust and whatnot like that. And so do you think your son is progressing?
Yes, I do.
And so you're a member of the CAC.
Yes, I am.
Thank you. I would, when your son matriculates out, I hope that you will stay in contact with the CAC so that you can provide that comfort level to parents when they first introduce their children to Sac City Unified, so that they can overcome that mistrust sooner and begin to work with us. It is amazing to me that we, in looking at the numbers that have been presented tonight, we spend more than 20% of our budget on less than 15% of our total student body. And that to me is a commitment that we are making to the children that have those special needs. And what I'm proud to say that we can do it, that we do it, and I hope that we can continue to do that. I hope that we can continue to provide the funding for it, because I know that there are children that have those special needs, parents who are concerned about their children, worried about their children and their children's future. And I'd like to thank our staff for the work that they do, and I'd like to thank you for your statements today.
Vice President Pritchett.
Thank you. It's funny. You might just want to stay up. I just wanted to thank you and being so blatantly honest with us about your experience through this. When we were going through this IEP and learning of how it's put together, I was reading it and I was thinking in my mind, I'm a mother of a school-age child, and I was thinking how hard it is to be in a room and talk about the faults or things that your child may need help with. And so I really appreciate you coming forth and being really honest with us about your experiences. My question to you is, because you've been in the program so long and you're a great advocate for someone coming in new, is there recommendations that you could give us as the district that we can do things better? Or this is a hefty document for a parent coming in and learning about all these things that their child may need help with, right? And though it's a binding contract and we're all going to stay with it, is there advice that you can give us that we can help parents understand it more and understand their rights and getting through the process a little bit easier?
Actually, a good question, because you ever remember when you go into new places and they always tell you the front person is the person that you remember when you go to a restaurant, whoever greets you, or when you go somewhere new, you remember that initial service that you got, right? And you think, okay, I didn't care how they talked to me or how they sat, whatever it was, and you're going to reconsider whether you go back, right? So what I would tell you is the first person that special ed puts in front of a parent, because I had just the opposite, needs to realize this is someone that is emotionally a wreck, I'm going to tell you, okay? So it's not so much if parents coming in, they want this, and that. It's more so if you keep in the forefront of your mind what you're dealing with. As I told my team, we're here because I had a child in 2002 who was diagnosed in 2004 that had autism. That's why we're sitting in this room today. So my thing would be is that forefront person, which normally is the program specialist, this is the first contact I had in 2005. You can ask Becky if it'd be something different. That person was not very passionate, was not very kind, was not very friendly, nor were they open of what I felt were my rights as far as a parent. I got a rights piece of paper, and the rest you had to read. So, which we have expressed to her before, which I believe Sac City is working on, is that initial person that you encountered with needs to have a little bit more compassion of what you're dealing with. You might not understand, but you're dealing with everybody at some point has a child. So you're dealing and talking about this particular person's child. And the majority of the things that you deal with are things that are not necessarily positive. Not that it's their fault, but you're dealing with an issue, right? We're in here because there is an issue and there's a problem, right? So what I would say to you is that initially that forefront person that needs to be contacted or needs to have that interaction with that parent, just have a little compassion and understanding. Because yes, that parent might come off fighting. I was one of them. I'm going to be honest with you. I came out fighting. But if I came out, it's kind of like if you've ever made a phone call and you've had an irate and you were really pretty ticked, right? So next thing you get that person, I am so sorry. What is it can I do to fix whatever happened that I didn't do, but yet what is it can I do to fix it? What do you do? Wow, okay. I'm going to regroup. Right? And think, okay, they just defuse whatever I was about to go off on with this person, didn't they? Right? So now what? They have your full attention, and you're going to explain to them exactly what you wanted or whatever it is that you were dissatisfied with, right? So then they says, okay, I get that. Let me figure out how I can help you. It might not get done today. It might not get done tomorrow, but you need to know that I'm going to work on it. And that comes back to what I just said, trust. So then you work on it. If you can't get something done within a 2 or 3 day time span, give me a call. Okay, I appreciate that. I understand that you're busy. As Grace said, there's a huge workload. Anybody, not necessarily that person at work, but anybody, give me a call. Okay, so-and-so's working on it. Give us maybe 3 or 4 days. Me as a parent, okay. And if that takes them, as long as there's some type of communication that is positive to let me know that you are concerned and you heard what I said. We all want that, and even if it's not especially, you all want that at some point to know that you're heard and somebody's working on what your request is and what your concern is.
So what are your findings with the CAC from speaking with other parents? Are they having some of the same experiences that you
Absolutely.
had?
You have no idea.
It's something we need to work on.
Mm.
Good to know. Thank you for being so honest.
You're
I really
welcome.
do appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Member Rodriguez.
Thank you. I just want to thank you also, Board President Kennedy. This is a presentation I had been asking for quite some time. I get the benefit of having to talk to parents with children who have special needs. And quite frankly, I get asked a lot of questions that I don't know the answers to. And so I still have a lot of questions. Like, what's the difference between an IEP and a 504? One has a medical diagnosis. The other one, how did we get there, kind of thing. And I know that we had a presentation on it, but still now that they're side by side, how do we get there? And I want you to answer that. But I want to talk to, we have Miss Benita here. And I haven't forgot our conversation. We had a conversation before about your child and iPad and nonverbal, and I do remember that. So, I just want to, first of all, thank you for your candor also, not only here before the board, but with me in private. And, me wanting to learn more about, what it is. It's difficult being a parent. And I think it's even more difficult to be a parent of a child that has needs that are beyond, what we know of. Just the other day I had to deal with one of my children. You find out these little intricacies about your children and you go, oh, okay, right? And it must be like that for you, not just a one-time occurrence, but like almost every hour. So I could empathize with you and put myself in your shoes, with the conditions that you have to be under as a mother, and balancing your family as a whole. So I really want to thank you for being here this evening. I also want to thank Ms. Trujillo as well. I've learned a lot over the years talking to you, and I thank you for being so patient. Thank you. So, some of the follow-up questions that I have about what you were talking about, you kind of answered in terms of, customer service. It came down to customer service, that first person that you see. But do you think that you talked a lot about trust as well? Do you think you began to trust when maybe they saw your reaction and maybe they started changing their behaviors, and then that incited you to trust and open up? Or do you think it was just something that you all had to get through, or maybe you personally had to get through? I mean, you want to just kind of describe your journey for me?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because since she's here, Becky and I had an encounter because ours wasn't exactly, I wouldn't say positive or negative, but it just wasn't mixing. How about that? So to answer your question, it took me to trust my program specialist when I was arguing about something my child need, for her to say, Benita, if you just take this step, if it does not work, and the school district does and it doesn't this particular way, we're going to go to this next step. Okay? So it took her, and that's when I talked about that passion of that person, to understand my need to say, hey, look, we're going to have to go through this step. But I had to trust the fact that step didn't work, so now we're going to go to the next one. That step didn't work, and now we're going to go to the next. What led to me eventually getting my son's aid. So it took both her to step out to me to say, I will do my part, okay? And it took me to say, okay, I'll wait for you. The other incident that happened is before I came to part of CAC, I ran across Becky at a meet and greet, okay? Mind you, I didn't realize my perception of what I was as a parent for Sac City. I'm not saying it was hers, but just kind of the response that I got back. Because when I didn't get him what I want, I made a quick call as they go up the chain, if you know what I mean. Okay? So
Yeah,
at
we
the
do.
top of that chain is who? Okay? So I don't know if she remembers my name, but it was some few phone calls that came through. So I saw an encounter with her with another parent. It wasn't all that positive. I knew the parent, and I could tell by the parent's conversation with Becky, it wasn't going too well. Okay. So then after that conversation, that parent came to me and had a few things to say that weren't necessarily positive. I was like, God, that really wasn't right. You know, it wasn't right. So I think I was going to do something and go and say something positive to Becky Bryant, because I felt that, I was doing not like that particular parent. So as I went and approached Becky, I've already kind of discussed this part because I want to put her on blast. But when I went to her and I said it to her that evening, I says, "Oh, hi, my name is Benita Ayala," and what have you. I just wanted to know that I just am pleased with the things that I've got through Sac City and what have you. And Becky looked at me like, really? And it wasn't so much, it was just more the response. Somebody could say like, really? Yeah, kind of like, yeah, I think I've heard otherwise. Well, what that made me think, okay, I'm like that parent that I just had a conversation with. And that wasn't that trust that my part of the school district trusting me. So then I changed, because between that response and what I saw of what that parent, how she was approaching, which was an appropriate time to approach her also, that helped me to change my part in it. It started with that program specialist, but that initially changed my whole viewpoint and how I approach things to become more proactive, so they could see that this is a parent that's not just advocating for hers, but others. So that particular encounter kind of tipped it off for me in the other direction.
So as another parent question to you, not every parent is like you. Not every parent that has a child with special needs is engaged, in this process. What do you think the school district can do, or what kind of policy do you think the board can help to create that would help parents be more engaged with their children? Because, looking at this plan, it's huge, it's overwhelming. And if I'm a parent with an 8th grade level of education, or I'm a parent that doesn't speak English, I'm not quite understanding this, and it's very, very overwhelming. So what kind of things that we could do to help more parents through this process and get them engaged?
The biggest thing is probably what you don't want to hear, because it's going to take money. And what I mean by that is that you say, we've talked about we have a big population, the Spanish-speaking population, and they might not understand that. So to me, it's going to take a little bit more in depth for someone to maybe even to reach out to say, you might even have to address them to where you have to go to their home, or go to find someone that can speak their particular, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to not ignore you guys, but just to go to have someone that can facilitate for them that they feel comfortable. Because I cannot imagine, I would use my son as an example, who's nonverbal, but he's in a world that he cannot get his needs met because no one can understand him. So I look at someone who speaks a foreign language, but in that same manner. So what I would say to you is that somehow to do that, you need to reach them at that level to say, first of all, to have someone, and that maybe a program specialist, that is fluently speaking in Spanish. And they could have their whole dialogue in that. That might be harder for everyone else. But would not be comfortable for your parent to be able to do that and feel comfortable to do that? Is that possible? I don't know. But for me, if that was me, that would be a start. You know what I mean? That'd be the initial start. But as we all know, the biggest monkey in the room is money to start with. So you don't have enough program specialists to be able to do those things, that initial start to step out to do that, whether you have to even go to their school when they're there to pick up their child, whatever that case may be. But the suggestions that would come across, to be totally honest with you, I don't think that they would be feasible. Why? Because it's going to require more money. If that answered your question.
No, it does. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so now for the more techie questions. So let's just start with the IEP 504. Now that we see them side by side, One has a verifiable medical diagnosis, the other doesn't, right? Or not necessarily?
Around 504, we have our 504 expert in audience. Yeah.
Yeah.
With the 504, you do need a diagnosis for the most part. There is some gray in there. But it has to impact a life activity. So where there's a whole, and there's a whole series, if you remember, there's walking, talking, eating, it goes on, concentrating. It has to impact a life activity. And if it impacts that life activity that sort of prevents them from accessing their education, then we need to accommodate for that. Okay, different than, I mean, there's overlap, and sometimes a 504 will become an IEP in some instances, but going back to the least restrictive setting, we always try to accommodate in the least restrictive setting. But a 504 is accommodation that impacts a life activity.
If we use an example of students in our district who have diabetes. Not so long ago, several years ago, students who came to us who had diabetes, in order to actually get services of insulin and insulin pumps and blood sugar monitoring, we actually qualified those students, and that was their only need, and we qualified them for special education. This district has done an astute job of discontinuing that practice, having students be served with accommodations through a 504 plan, and not get a label, if you will, in terms of being eligible for special education. In fact, we recently just went through sort of a mini review with the state, and we were supposed to identify students who were eligible under what we call the OHI criteria, their health impaired criteria with diabetes, and we could find no students because our students with diabetes that we are serving have other needs as well.
Thank you. So can parents, since these are very complex meetings, it's my understanding that parents can do this. They can come in and bring a tape recorder to these meetings. And then does the district recommend to the parent that they do this? Because I'm looking at the minutes that are contained in the IEP. It's like, how does the parent verify that everything was said, or how does the district verify that everything was said and it's correctly, or it's accurate, or when the parent says, no, this is the way I understood it. So are you guys recommending to parents that they come in? Is that one of the alternatives they have? How do they know this?
It's certainly one of the alternatives they have. It's one of the rights that they have, and it's well documented in their parents' rights and responsibilities that they receive from us when the student's first referred, and then again at the meeting. The requirement is that they need to notify us at least 24 hours in advance if they wish to exercise that right, and then we in turn also have a tape recorded recording of the meeting as well. The other thing that we do is parents have the right to, just as any other business contract, take that document home and review it, call us and ask additional questions, reconvene the IEP meeting before they determine that they feel comfortable to provide consent.
You answered another question right now, too. And I'm going to ask you the series of questions that I get asked a lot, from parents in the district, and a lot of times parents outside of the district call. I don't know how they get my number, but they do. They call me, and they ask me these series of questions, and they're quite simple for you to answer, but not for me. So, I have an IEP meeting, the consultant evaluator never came to it. what do I do?
In some repeated IEP meetings, such as triennial evaluations, because our staff is spread so thin, sometimes they call families on the phone prior to the meeting and have someone on the team shares the report. At initial meetings, my preference and desire is for every team member to be sitting at that table, because it's a very important process for the parent to understand. And because we have so many terms that we use that can be very confusing to parents, we have to be very diligent in making sure that the language that we use is understandable to them, including providing translation service, having translators at the IEP so parents can understand in their primary language what's going on in the meeting.
The other thing is, let me see here. I had to go to the district wasn't taking care of my needs, and I had to go to the ombudsman. I don't know where my status is on this.
We actually work very closely with the ombuds people in the district, and have a very much a two-way dialogue in terms of if we're having difficulty reaching out to families and they've had a relationship with the family. They often attend our IEP meetings. They attend on behalf of the parents at their request. They attend at our request, and they very much are a valuable piece in the process in terms of if two sides are having difficulty communicating.
Who do they go to? Like if they want to know the status of what the issue is, do they go to the district or do they go back to the ombudsperson?
Well, we would prefer that they always try to get assistance and solve their issues at the local level, so at the school site. And if they don't feel that they have been heard or they're not satisfied, then their program specialist is the next step, because they are the liaison to the school sites. After that, the ombudsman person may then become involved. Sometimes it comes to one of our supervisors, which is our management staff, or to me directly, and then we work on solutions with the families or refer them to help them get to the people they need to help them resolve their issue.
And another parent question that comes to me a lot is, the school's not following my IEP. What do I do?
And that, I would say, is the most common issue that we have, because we have so many students who have IEPs and they're all very intricate. We spend a lot of time with our staff doing professional learning around the requirements of the IEP and the implementation of the IEP. But really, it's bringing the people together so that they can know that the best interests of the students are at heart, that we will implement the IEP. Sometimes we don't know when pieces of the IEP are not being implemented, such as if we are subcontracting with an agency and they're full and they've missed some sessions, then when those come to our attention, we make those sessions up. But we have to know what the parents are concerned about. And so I appreciate it when, families call us and share with us their concerns.
So the board member response to the parent would be, please call. I mean, obviously they're telling me about something that's occurring at the school site, so I don't want to direct them back to the school site. So do I tell them, call your program specialist?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, these are things that, it would be helpful to me. Call your program specialist, call the school site if you're dealing with your ombudsperson. How many times you can ask for another IEP evaluation.
Yes.
Okay, so these are some very common questions that have come up, and these are some of the responses that I'm looking, like, how do I get a common response back to them? So thank you very much.
What we can do to facilitate that, if the board members, if you have questions that you're frequently being asked of by parents, please forward them to us. And what we can do is, on our special ed website, is to actually do a Q&A, work with the communications office, so we have these frequently asked questions. So that way, there's a resource and avenue that you can direct the parents in the interim.
That'd be great. I mean, those are some of the more frequent questions, and I just kind of wanted I didn't need an explanation. I just needed like a quick, call your school site, call your program specialist,
You will get them, so
yeah,
just shoot them
yeah.
our way.
Because I don't think that we're not the experts and we can't handle their issues. But I would like to be an expert on how to direct them to get to the answer is what I need to really feel comfortable in. And I think every board member up here needs that as well. So my last question is about funding. We were just looking at this, and I know Jeff and I were making a comment. And one of the things that kind of like popped in my head was, I know we're underfunded in special education dollars. We're only, 50% mandated. Of our mandated program element is only being 50% funded. And so is that an issue because we have an extended year program and they only did the formula for 180-day school calendar year, and they didn't anticipate that some children were going to need a full year of school? Or is it just flat? They say, well, you have 6,800 students that are in special ed, and we're only going to fund you for 3,400.
Well, because our enrollment overall in the district is declining and the percentage of our students with special needs with IEPs is growing, it becomes more difficult because of the way that the state funding comes to us, which much of it is based on the district ADA. So although it's going down, one would think we would have less children with special needs. We have more children with special needs. And so that does impact our ability to spread that money around. There's also a requirement from the federal government that we have something called a maintenance of effort every year, and we cannot spend less on our students from year to year than we've spent prior years without really good justification.
Thank you. That's very insightful information. Thank you.
Member Hanson.
I have a couple quick, probably there are more comments, but I know one of the things that, first of all, has been very informational. I think it's really critical to hear from parents that are involved in this as well. So it's very informative and really helps me understand this issue a lot more, because my first exposure to this as a board member, and I'm still a fairly new board member, are voting on lawsuit settlements from folks who are obviously, or there's some disgruntlement there. And so for me, what my big takeaway is, lawsuits are from unhappy parents who probably don't feel like they're part of the team. So if we don't have lawsuits, well, that must be that there's a good teamwork happening. So I'd like to see that be one of our metrics that we look at going forward. I know that we've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars settling lawsuits in the last couple of years. That comes right out of our general fund that can be used for, obviously, a whole assortment of things that we'd much prefer to do than to spend it on lawyers. So I think if lawsuits are going down, we're moving in the right direction. So I think that would be a great metric to use, and something that I'm just going to stay focused on. And I think it was also insightful to hear about, just kind of straight customer service. The first interaction really is really critical. And it's, you just have that right person in place who's really empathetic would really be important. Because trying to understand where a parent's coming from when they are facing these issues, I'm sure is very overwhelming. And so that's really helpful. And really just the last thing, it's just a couple comments, but I was really excited to see, more, expansion of the inclusive practices. I think that's great. Several of the schools in my area, McClatchy, Cal Middle, Iatata, all have those, and it's important not only for the student that's being included, but I think it's really important for the other students in the classroom too. We're all in this together. We all are part of the team, and it's not just for these years when the children are in schools, but we're going to be, in society together with the rest of our lifetime. So students learning at an early age that there's students and people that have special challenges in life, and learning how to accommodate that and grow together is really just going to be better for all of us in the long run. So I was really excited about that, and just hope we keep expanding it. So thank you for your great work.
Okay, I have one question that you may not, necessarily know the answer to, but it's just kind of, thank you. And that's the table that it compares. And this may just be your opinion, because I don't expect you to be, extremely knowledgeable about what other districts do. But so there's, quite a few, 20,000 more students in Elk Grove, yet very similar number of special ed students in the two districts. Okay. Yes, I guess you will, yeah.
I can speak to that, working in that district for 17 years. It's a very different, in looking at the two special ed departments and supports in the two districts, I've been looking at it quite a bit in this last year, and it's a completely different structure. It's a different structure from the district office to the school sites. There's a different culture. There's one is not, as far as the services and the people, this department works incredibly hard. So this isn't a misconception. This isn't saying that your department isn't doing the right work. It's just in Elk Grove, for 20 years, they have a culture of professional development with their administrators, professional development with their teachers, deeply embedded expectations of teachers, and expectations around customer service and identification. So again, it goes back down to resources. There's a lot more resources pumped into that district relative to the special ed department and the work and the vision of that. A lot of great work happening here as well. I think really the culture shift and the difference in culture accounts for the difference in numbers there.
I do not understand your answer.
So, I was trying to tread softly because I don't want to compare, because it's not, I think it's disenfranchising to the people here in Sac City. But what I can say in Elk Grove is every year there's targeted professional development for administrators and how they work with special education teachers, parents, students. There's clear goals set relative to identification. The number of program specialists far exceed the numbers that we have here, and the support for the district office. The special education department in Elk Grove looks like our family and community engagement department here. So when you take a look at services provided to students and parents and administrators, which is really the ground level working, it looks just very different. Our special education department is embedded within our academics department. That alone speaks to the need for this district to really pull it aside, give it the attention it needs, give it the services that it needs, and the training and the support that it needs. So it's just a very different structure. What they're doing here in Sac City is phenomenal given the structure that they have. Does that help?
But so are we overclassifying special ed? I mean.
So is it over? Certainly, proportionally, we are much higher in Sac City.
Right.
Now, given the level of training that teachers and principals go through is very different. So if we have the training in another district that speaks to the level of services and different strategies, interventions that can be given to students so they don't get identified, that has been deeply embedded for years. Here, we don't have the level of training that we've had over time, over many years of time. So yes, I believe that they're being identified partly because of the PD.
May I add to that, please?
Yes.
And I do not know Elk Grove and their services.
Didn't expect you to.
But I'm also comparing to my past experiences. And in each district where I've worked, I've had the privilege of supporting or supervising the special education department. A big disparity in this district goes to having a very comprehensive and robust multi-tiered system of supports to be able to address the needs of our students. So we are reducing the number of students being eligible for special education. And that one of the great contributing factor to us not having, and so you may know it as response to intervention, RTI. The current terminology is multi-tiered system of supports. Our current fiscal climate does not support us being able to put in place such a robust system.
I got it.
Okay? If we were to have that system in place, I guarantee you we would have fewer students going up the pyramid and being identified as special education. We need to catch them early before they get to that level, and that's what we need to establish and put in place.
Actually, President Milewski actually explained that to me. So now I put the two together. I got it. Thank you very much. I just want to say, I just make a comment. Having been through many IEPs, with my own child, and one of the reasons I ran for the board when I did was what I felt was we had great experience. First of all, very nurturing, very comprehensive. But my experience was looking around the district. It wasn't like that district-wide, and it was really hit and miss, and it was better in some schools, not as good in others, and that was a large impetus why I'm even sitting here, because I felt like it should be something that no matter what school you're at and who your teacher is and who the champion is, it's the same services. I have to say it's phenomenally better now, and I'm finding much more equity, and I'm very proud of that. Not to mention, we do have some of the best trained special ed teachers there are. So, I want to thank you for everything that you are doing. It's really, very important work. So thank you. Anything else, board? Okay, thank you.
Very much.
11.0 Business and Financial Information Reports. We have received. Future board meetings. Board, remember now we are going to be meeting at 4:30 for closed session. Most likely we're going to postpone or move the open session up to 7 o'clock, and we will confirm that. The following meeting, June 5th, regular time schedule. Is there a motion for adjournment? Moved by member Hanson, seconded by Vice President Pritchett. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? We're adjourned.